I'm Kaylee Fife, and I have the opportunity to teach Brigham for my lesson. And Brigham is age 5, and so according to Piaget, is in the pre-operational stage. And according to Erik Erikson, is learning initiative and guilt at this stage. Now, elements of these are power over situation, pretend play, language development, symbolic thinking, and purpose. Now I hope to incorporate these elements into my lesson, and I will start with the pretend play. When Brigham walks into the room, I will be wearing a lab coat and goggles. Our lesson is on density, which is a little more scientific, so I want to give him the opportunity to wear a lab coat and goggles if he wants to. I won't make him because I want him to have power over a situation. I'll give him the opportunity, but he can choose to say no. I will incorporate this idea into other parts of the lesson, because I want him to be able to choose and critically think about what he thinks is best. The next two things are language development and symbolic thinking. Now, density isn't a very concrete idea, and so he will have to really develop his language and his thinking to be able to articulate the ideas that I will propose to him and questions I'll ask him. Now, the final part is purpose. I want to have I will have a purpose to every activity we do, propose a goal or a challenge so that he can learn the sense of purpose in what we're doing. Now to my lesson, I will start with the pre-assessment. When he comes, I'll have him bring his pillow, and I'll bring a box that's slightly smaller than his pillow and ask him if he can essentially put it in the box. And if he says yes, then I know density is in this schema and that he understands that he can put the pillow in a smaller space to fit it in the box. If he says no, I will ask him to try it, and then we'll talk about what happened, and so he can understand the idea in that way. The next part is to see if he can recognize density in parts of his life that he's familiar with, like Where's Waldo or I Spy books. I will bring those and ask him why it's so hard to find Waldo or to find that little toy in the book. And we'll talk about how those pages are more dense and that's what makes it hard. The next part is floating wood. I will bring two pieces of wood that are very identical and put them in water. One will float, one will sink, and talk about the properties behind that. I'm hoping he'll understand that the wood that's more dense was heavier and the one that floated was lighter. But also part of this, I'm hoping to include a moral dilemma, talking about how the two pieces of wood are identical, and because of that, he could deceive or lie to somebody and say that they were the same when they're really not. And talk about how scientists search for truth, and that in that truth they discover, they do experiments, they have hypotheses and test those, and so I really want to introduce him to the idea of being honest in what he does. Next part is having an egg sink and then float. I hope to have him be able to be a little more hands-on in this, not to tell him what to do as much. I'll have him put the egg in the water so it sinks, and then I'll give him resources and ask him questions to see if he can figure out how to make the egg float. And that will prepare us for the final activity. And the final result, I hope to have him stack liquids by their density, so the most dense will be on bottom and the least dense on top. But to get there, I want him to explore a little bit. I want him to use his senses, touch and taste and smell the different liquids, and see if he can identify them, because that's that'll be a learning process for him, a very good learning activity. And then with that, I will scaffold him a little bit to see, challenge him a little bit, see if he can figure out the densities of them, and then get to that final result. According to Bloom's taxonomy, the first two elements really go under knowledge to see if density is in the schema to a point. The next two work on his comprehension to see if he understands the ideas I'm posing to him, especially in situations he's not familiar with. And then the last one is application, to see if he can work with the objects I've given him to see if he can apply the idea of density and make that tower of liquids, that final result. Well, I'm really excited to meet Brigham and to work with him, and I really hope that with this activity he doesn't just learn about density, but he learns initiative and starts to love discovery and learning, and carry that with him when he goes to school.